listeners, and welcome to another edition of the program Addiction and Recovery. It's a very rainy morning here in Trinidad and Tobago. This still a wonderful Thursday morning, so let's hope for the best for the rest of the day. And of all those on the nation roadways, I urge you guys to still proceed with caution wherever you're headed right now. So, without further ado, let me introduce to the host of the program, Mr. Ramners Dwarka. Sit to you, sir.
Sure, Jason. It's indeed a privilege and a pleasure to be here again. And let me join with you in welcoming all our listeners, both in Trinidad and Tobago and worldwide, on the various platforms who follow this program, and also let them know that this is a program that is interactive. And if you have questions, you may call the numbers of the station and you can interact with us. You can raise the questions. And of course, those of you who are not able to stay with the program in its entirety, you can always come back. This program will be posted on Facebook and YouTube sometime during the day today. And you can also look at it at your convenience. It's repeated again on this same media platform, on this same station at 10 to 9. So there you go. And, I have found a lot of people, Jason, using the program now to introduce. One of the problems with alcoholism and drug addiction is that a lot of people who have the condition, the illness, they are in denial. Denial is one of those first challenges, the first hurdle to seeking help or getting assistance or dealing with this problem. And so that people in denial are very reluctant to go to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, especially the physical meetings, because they don't want others to see them. They don't want people in the community to know that they have a problem. And they're also reluctant to even go to professionals because the difficulty is admitting that you have a problem. But a lot of people are finding it very safe that they can go in a confidential manner, they can sit by themselves, they can go on YouTube, and they can access the program, and they can make that determination on their own as to whether they have a problem with alcoholism or drug addiction. Because we have dealt with questions that could help you to make that diagnosis. And also a lot of resource material have been given on these programs in terms of if you realize you have a problem, where you can go to get help if you're in Trinidad and Tobago or worldwide. And what are some of those things that you can practice now? The 12 steps, as is used in Alcoholics Anonymous, the traditions are also discussed in these programs. So there's a resource that we are building here using this program so that anyone with a drug problem, whether it be alcoholism, marijuana, prescription pill addiction, there are also programs on meditation, on physical exercise in relation to recovery. There's a host of material here that one can access and refer other relatives and friends to who can, at their own convenience and in their own space, access this information and help themselves. The feedback has been very good, Jason, coming out of this program. There are a lot of people who are now declaring that they have benefited tremendously. Some people are staying sober. And I want to deal with that topic this morning, staying sober, especially at this time of year. This is December in Trinidad and Tobago. We are heading into Christmas. We already start hearing the parang and the Christmas music. And for a lot of people, they are what you call triggers, Jason. For some people, just going to parang, is a trigger that could induce them to take a drink or smoke. There are those people who associate Christmas with, drinking and merriment and all of that. And around this time, a lot of uh, workplaces will be having office parties, and they expect everyone, all the workers there, to attend. And it is a time when colleagues know, and they would have probably had drinks with you before, and they are aware of your drinking pattern. And there's a saying, Jason, that misery likes company. That is to say, and I have had that personal experience that because I stopped drinking on the 11th of this month. It would be 40 years since I have had my last drink. So I've had ample time to have this experience of having to attend functions, weddings, you know, other get-togethers, family get-togethers, where drinking is part of the agenda, the program for the evening. Because in Trinidad, most people have come to believe that you can't really have a good time unless you have a few drinks. So that in preparation for most social occasions, hosts will generally stock up on various kinds of alcoholic beverages, beers and stout and rum and whiskey and wines and so on. And especially coming to Christmas, we know that's a culture in Trinidad. Even for people who are not drinking, they still stock up because they want to entertain friends and relatives who still drink. And so that I want to today share some tips on people who are in recovery, especially those people who might have recently decided to give up drinking or drug use. But this equally applies to anyone. It doesn't matter how long you have been sober, and even if you are in Alcoholics Anonymous, you are in a support group, you are attached to your church and all of that. There's a saying, Jason, that we are only an arm's length away from picking up that drink. And it doesn't matter how long you've been sober. And especially if you have not been attending meetings regularly. And even if you have been attending meeting regularly, but you have not been practicing the principles of recovery, if you are unaware of your triggers, then you are generally susceptible and vulnerable to relapse. So I want to say at the outset, if you are in recovery, sobriety is your business. No one else can do it for you. Sometimes we expect the spouse and the relatives to look out for us. But these same relatives who would applaud you for giving up drinking and in the beginning, after they have taken a few drinks, and if they are not alcoholics in recovery, they too think that there's no harm if you take one little drink. And there's so many ways that people get enticed around this time. You have all the black cake and the fruit cake and all of those preparations, delicacies that are laced with alcohol. And you also have the various kinds of shandies that also have a certain small percentage, albeit. But I want to say that there are different kinds of dependence. There are people who are psychologically dependent. That is to say, they have to take a drink before they could loosen up and sing and dance and enjoy themselves. And psychological dependence also uh, causes people who have been using alcohol as a coping device. Now, Christmas, although it is joyful and celebratory, it is also a very stressful time for a lot of people. It is not only when we have to deal with sadness and death and deprivation that we feel sad and stressed out, but even to enjoy and have a good time, to have host a wedding or to celebrate Christmas, it is very stressful because now you're inviting a lot of people and you have to make preparations for them and you have to develop invitation lists and so that stress, whether it be because of sadness or ill circumstances, is stressful, but also uh, alcoholics typically are people who had to drink to enhance their enjoyment. You understand? They feel that they couldn't really have a good time unless they had a few drinks. And as the presentation just before this program suggested, that the alcohol is one artificial way to get the brain to release the dopamine. And the dopamine is that chemical that makes us feel happy. So that you know, when we have had the experience of, you know, euphoria from drinking and all of that, one remembers that and realizes without the alcohol, we can't get to those heights, as we call it. So that is the temptation. Then there are triggers that are visual. Just seeing people drink and drink, having a good time, dancing and all of that can cause a person who used to be a drinker to start feeling self-pity, feeling sorry for themselves, realizing that, hey, you know, although I've stopped drinking, but I don't have the courage, I don't have the, you know, I'm so self-conscious that I don't feel comfortable now to go and dance and you know, behave like I used to in the past, you know, because the alcohol relieves the self-restraint. So that could become a trigger. So bearing all of that in mind, I would like to suggest, yes, okay, at the beginning, you have to decide whether you can handle the situation or not. Being sober, maintaining your sobriety is your responsibility. No one can do it for you. And if you have just stopped drinking a short while ago and you think, look, you will not be able to handle the taunts at the party, the triggers at the party, the loneliness that you may feel and all of that, and you are not in a support group, then you might do well to decide, look, you know, this year I'm going to skip it. I will make an excuse. I will probably give some excuse to them that I can't attend because you don't want to put yourself at risk. However, if you decide you want to attend because you don't want to be seen as as a sore thumb, you don't want to be seen as person who is antisocial, and you decide to attend, whether it be the party at the job or the invitation to the get together at the family, then there are a few things you can do. One is you make sure, even though food will be available there and will be served, right? It will be safe for you to eat, to have your stomach full before you go. Because from experience and research, we realize that most people, when the stomach is filled, it reduces the craving for the alcohol. So that you eat, and yes, you may go back there and have a little more, just to honor the invitation, but you have something to eat before you go. So you relieve the chances of getting the urge to take a drink. And then it would be also, I would suggest that you be punctual, or you go a few minutes even earlier. If the invitation is for, say, 7 o'clock, get there at 6:45, right? And as I said, you have something to eat before you go, you get there at 6:45, because most people who are drinking and practicing alcoholics, they have a tendency to always arrive later on, you know. And the other reason is you want to get there early so you satisfy the requirement of the invitation, you're punctual, and then very early you get something to eat if you have two there. And what you need to do, if you're serving alcohol, it is important that you open the bottle you drink from. If you have, try to avoid people serving you, because a lot of people think it is fun. They know you have stopped drinking, they know you used to drink, and if you ask them to bring a glass of juice for you or anything, just out of fun, they may pour a little alcohol in there, you know, and bring it for you, because they don't know how serious it is. They think they're just doing you a favor, you know, and having fun. But for an alcoholic, as I mentioned earlier, there are different kinds of dependency. There are those who are psychologically dependent and who needed to relieve their restraint, self-restraint, and who needed to help them to cope with stress. But there are those people who are chemically dependent, and any little amount of alcohol can trigger a chain reaction in them that brings on the craving. So even if 1% shandies and all of that can trigger that craving for alcohol. The bitters that we add to our juice and all the other things that we make, sorrel and all of that, a lot of people, put a dash of bitters. Bitters has a very high percentage of alcohol, and that too can trigger it. So you want to be very, very careful that you have nothing with alcohol in it, right? So that you make sure you open the bottle, you pour your drink in your glass, and it will be good that you take a glass that stands out, that is unique. These glasses, they come in sets, Jason. Some of them have these flowers or birds, and there's several of them that look the same way. And it is easy for you to get your glass, you put it down, you're having a conversation, and the other person have a glass that is similar to yours, but they have whiskey in their glass, and you may have a pear racks. And both the glass looks the same way because the drinks look the same way, and you could mistakenly take up the other person's glass and have a drink from it. Now, as I say that, I want to give the warning that it is the reason why God has put our nose just above our mouth, so that we won't have any excuse. Because if you were an alcoholic in recovery, you would be able to smell alcohol from a mile. And if you took up a glass, even by mistake, you would be able to smell the alcohol in it before you drink it. So it is something you need to be aware of. But if you have a glass that is, identifiable, and it might be useful to keep your glass in your hand, and I'll tell you the reason why. Because after your colleagues and your friends or your family and you say all of them, they have had a few drinks, they will probably be coming and, as I said, misery likes company. They all come, take a drink now, boy, one drink ain't gonna do you nothing. They know you used to drink. And all you have to do is to show them, look, I have a drink. Once you show them you have a drink, they stop bothering you. They don't really care whether you drink it or not, but it is part of the ritual, camaraderie, where as I said, misery likes company. People who are drinking, they don't really like to see someone who stopped. You understand? So you keep your glass filled all the time. You may want to put pear racks, or you may want to put banana soft drink or something that looks like alcohol, so you won't be bothered, right? And you stay away. You ask questions. If you're going to have a piece of cake or something, you ask. If you're going to have juice, you ask if they have bitters in it. And me personally, when I can speak about me, I don't even want to have non-alcoholic wine or whatever, because some of these bottles, they write non-alcoholic, but they still have a percentage of alcohol in them, because the people who bottle them didn't think 1% was sufficient for them to label it alcoholic. You understand? These are all advertising gimmicks, where you have to probably look very carefully. And so that, I don't even want to go through the psychological feeling of even substituting alcohol. You understand? So not even non-alcohol, but that's my choice. I would suggest for people who are new and people in recovery, they may want to consider that suggestion. And then a very important part of this is to, as soon as people around you starts getting drunk and inebriated and all, it would maybe time for you to leave the party. Because my own experience is that, at a certain point, everybody's talking and nobody's listening. And people start to behave ridiculous. And then there's a tendency for people who are drinking and inebriated and drunk to come and pick on you, especially your friends who know you used to drink. They come and start saying, well, what you're trying to do, you're trying to be stingy, or you're playing priest, or you're afraid of your wife, and they find all kinds of names, and and to the extent where it could make you uncomfortable, or they might want to challenge you now just to prove them wrong, and out of anger, you might decide, well, look, you know what, I gonna, you already have the craving. If you're not on the program, if you're not in recovery, if you have always had the thought, if you still have not accepted that you're an alcoholic, you might have admitted it, but you have not accepted it, then there's a very good chance with a little encouragement, you could go back and take that drink. So this is why at the outset, you make a decision whether you want to go there or not in the first place. You call and this is why it is also very important. A lot of people stop drinking, but they don't want anybody to know that they have stopped. They're not telling their siblings or their colleagues or their workers that they have stopped. Because one of the reasons they are doing that is because they're not sure that they will go back, that if whether they'll go back to drink. In a way, some of them still hang out with the drinking friends and they buy drink for their friends because it's like they stop drinking, but they're still paying their premium. Just in case they relapse, they wouldn't have lost their friends. So for so many reasons, and because of the stigma, or because of the uncertainty as to whether they will go back and drink, they don't tell anyone, so that they will not feel bad, because they will not be taunted later on. Boy, I heard, and you said you would stop drinking, and look, like you have failed. But it is important for a person to let the people around them know as soon as possible that they have stopped drinking, because that could become a protective device. Because let's suppose, myself and you, Jason, and maybe Francis, we were going to Coro for a lime. And I used to drink, but I've stopped. And I didn't tell you and Francis. So we stopped at Coro Junction by the bar there, and you all just rush out, one of you, and buy 3 beers, and you already open it, and the sun is very hot. And the beer is beastly cold, man, and it's very tempting. And I did not tell you all, and you already open it. I may very well stay quiet and take the beer, and my mind say, well, all right, you know what? I'll just stop from tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes. You understand? And you know what will happen? All hell will break loose. You can believe it. You all will not have to offer me the next one. I might go out and buy myself. However, if on the other hand, I had told you and Francis that, look, I have stopped drinking because this thing, is not doing well. I'm not doing well for it. And we stop at Cora Junction, and both of you rush out there and buy 2 beers and a Malta. You already open it and you're handing the Malta to me because you all know I stopped. Even if I had the craving for a beer, you all would have protected me, because now I can't tell you, boys, take this Malta and carry it back and bring a beer for me. You understand? So you all would have saved me from myself, even if I had the urge. So this is the same reason it is important to let people know as soon as you're comfortable that, look, you have stopped drinking, so that that in itself becomes a boundary. When you're at the party with them now, you know that you have told all of them that you have stopped. So that in itself becomes a protective device, because even if you get the urge, somebody's going to say, but ain't you stopped drinking, boy? You understand? It will protect you from yourself. You understand? As I say that, I remember a little incident. There was this guy from Freeport who went to an AA meeting. And of course, he was pressured to go to the AA meeting by a relative. But in small communities, people, they get to hear these things. So next day, he's heading to the bar to take a drink, And there are 2 of his drinking partners in the bar already there, drinking. And one of them see him coming and they say, hey, look, the AA man coming, boy. And because they said that, he didn't go, and he went in the other side of the shop and never go and take that drink. And I heard that story from him many years after he was sober. So a little thing like that can make the big difference in a person's life. So again, coming back to the party, you had your fill, you take your drink, you satisfy the the invitation, the requirements, and you head out early before everybody start getting drunk and starting to pick on you and scapegoat you in the meeting because in the party. Because I remember, it might have been just about 2 weeks after I had stopped drinking. I had to go to this wedding. A very close relative was getting married, and they had invited me, and I went to the wedding. And they knew I had stopped drinking. However, after the wedding came back and we were there, and I was playing music, and one of a close relative came up to me and say, "Take a drink now, man. One drink ain't gonna do you anything." And I said, "Boy, I'm not drinking, boy. I give up drinking." He said, "Well, if you ain't drinking it, you got to wear it, and he was going to pour it on me. Well, I tell you, I warned him, if he had done that, that would have been a spoiled wedding for him and me. You understand? But again, I draw that reference to that experience because I should have, after the wedding, go home. I shouldn't have gone there to the after the wedding, you know what, everybody's drunk and they're beating and singing and all of that. And the same person who would have complimented me before for, stopping drinking and all of that, with a few drinks in his head, his whole attitude towards it, and he meant well, he just felt, well, look, that was fun. But for me, that was serious. So I'm saying to people, around this time, a lot of people relapse, Jason, especially people who have recently stopped and who are not grounded in the AA 12-step program and all of that. So this is a time it is very important for people in recovery. If you don't have a sponsor, please have a sponsor. A sponsor is like a mentor who has been in recovery for a very long time. And a sponsor is usually a person who you can have access to 24/7. So that even if you're getting the urge, if you have an issue that is, causing you a lot of stress that may drive you to take a drink, you can always call your sponsor. This would be a time when you want to make sure that you become very active in your AA group. If you're not in a group, please join a group. Especially, you should join a group in your own community. And fortunately for us, they are out of chaos. A lot of good things have happened. Jason, even this program, I'm doing it now online. So too, we have meetings every night that are online. And if anyone is interested in accessing these meetings, all you have to do is to call me at 671-3040, 671-3040 after the program, and I will give you the particulars. There are meetings that are going on all around the clock, 24/7, all over the world. And once you have a smartphone and internet, you can access those meetings. Now, the physical meetings have started back again. In my community, for instance, in Felicity, where I live, there are 5 AA groups now that are having physical meetings. There are meetings on a Saturday night in the Presbyterian School at 7 o'clock in the evening. There is one at the Felicity Hindu School at 6 o'clock on Sunday evenings. There's one on Monday night again at 7 o'clock at the Felicity Presbyterian School. And then there's another one on Wednesday night, which is in Felicity, in the farmlands, we call it, in the gardens. There's a group there on a Wednesday night. And then again at the Felicity Hindu School on a Friday night at 7, there's an AA meeting. And there is a group, the Sunday evening meeting at the Felicity Hindu School have been running what is called a marathon meeting. It starts on Christmas morning at 8 in the morning on Christmas Day and runs all day, right all through the night, right on until Boxing Day morning at 8 o'clock. And the reason for that is so that members from the whole of Trinidad and Tobago are welcome to come and spend the day there. And they have food, they prepare food and sandwiches and entertainment, and there are meetings that are going on all the time. How these meetings are facilitated, There are various groups from all over Trinidad, south, north, east, west, that take panels, 2-hour panels, that are, let's suppose another group from another community will come and take the meeting from 8 to 10, then another group from 10 to 12, then, so there are 2-hour panels. And so you don't hear from the same people all the time, and you get people from your community to come there, and you get a wide perspective of experiences that people would have had. At the end of the day, you would realize it doesn't matter whether you drank in Toco or in West Moorings, the process of alcoholism remains the same. The consequences are very similar. As individuals are unique and different, yes, they will have different experiences, but generally the pattern is the same. Eventually, if you continue to drink alcohol and use drugs, there are only 3 places you can end up: either in prison, in the mental institution, or in the cemetery. So that a lot of people, this is the 25th year this group has been holding its marathon, and these are open meetings. So people who are non-alcoholics can also attend if you want to know more about alcoholism, about 12-step programs, about recovery. There are students who are writing papers on alcoholism. There are people who are in training as social workers and psychologists. These are all people who are involved in voluntary organizations, in the helping professions. They are also welcome to attend. And so you get a first-hand view, as we say, you hear it from the horse's mouth. The whole spectrum of alcoholism, how people start drinking, what are some of the things happened with them, how they found AA and how they found treatment and recovery, and since they've stopped, what are some of the good things happening with them, what are the challenges they've been having, and how they're dealing with those challenges. Some people have gone back to school, they've gone get reinstated in their employment. It's a beautiful program. So these are some of the things that one can do over the holiday season. However, as I said, some people are living in households where all the other members are still drinking, active alcoholics. And it can become very difficult now for you to stay in that environment if you have just stopped drinking. So that you may want to consider, as I said, you have a sponsor, you may want to spend the day with your sponsor, or you may want to go, if you don't have access to come to the marathon meetings, or there are no marathon meetings in your area. If you have a regular meeting, you can go, but it would be good to start going to meetings regularly around this time, because every meeting you go to, it's like you take out personal insurance against a relapse. So that going to meetings is very important. Having a social network, people that you can call, numbers that you can call. If you're getting the urge, there are numbers you can call. And let me say this as as we on this topic, the urge only lasts about 7 seconds. And there are several ways one can deal with the urge. First, there's a word called HALT, H-A-L-T. It's a mnemonic. The H stands for hunger, and I referred to that earlier on, so that you avoid being hungry. Even when you get up in the morning, make sure you have breakfast. In between, you keep your stomach full with being hydrated with water, or if you're not diabetic, juice, things like that. Sweet things have been known to mitigate the urge, so that if you're getting the urge and you take something sweet, it will help to relieve the urge. And then you stay away from people, places, and situations where alcohol is available, because a lot of your triggers would be tied with situations like that, where you might become vulnerable. So you avoid hunger, you avoid anger. Anger is one of those things that has caused most people to relapse. So you, around this time, or generally, you walk away from arguments, because there's no point in winning an argument and losing a friend, or winning an argument and then next thing you're going and drink because you got so angry. So you avoid arguments, you avoid anger, and does H is hunger, A for anger, L for loneliness. And this is a time when a lot of people start feeling lonely, especially if you're not drinking and you're accustomed to drinking and having a good time, one can feel lonely. And this is why it is important that you go to meetings regularly. You find, if you can't go to the marathon meetings in your area, you find your sponsor, spend the day with them, but you stay away as much as possible from the drinking environment. Okay? And the T stands for being tired. It means that, when we are tired or if we are not sleeping well, because alcohol is a sedative, and a lot of people, when they stop drinking, they start suffering with insomnia. Some may even have more serious withdrawal symptoms. And for those, they will need professional help because that could also cause you. If when you can't sleep and you can't sleep, some people take refuge in taking barbiturates sleeping pills, but that is even worse than taking alcohol because it is easier to come off alcohol than to come off sleeping pills. You understand? Although I know in some settings, in the medical settings, sometimes initially people are prescribed these barbiturates, but these should only be short term because they are highly addictive. One can become much more dependent on these things than on the alcohol. So that you don't want to work yourself too tired. So if you remember the word hall, you avoid hunger, anger, loneliness, and tiredness. You attend as many meetings as you can during this time. You make sure you have a sponsor or you have several numbers on your phone that you can call, and you keep yourself active. Okay, even at home, you need your family also need to be supportive. You understand? Sometimes some people are seasoning, they meet with the alcohol and all of that, not thinking that it could have an effect on you and so on. Well, we're still not too sure if the alcohol burns out when you cook with wine and all of that. But I generally would stay away from things like that. Albeit I'm very vegetarian, so it's not such a big problem for me. But it is a time when a lot of people, it is a little more challenging. A lot of people relapse around this time. So that it is a time when one has to be a little more careful. And again, as I said earlier on, your sobriety is your responsibility. Nobody can't do it for you. You have to put things in place and you have to make that decision. If you don't feel sure, then it is better to be safe than to be sorry. Because a lot of alcoholics, for them to relapse, it becomes more difficult after a relapse to start back your recovery again because a lot of people get discouraged. The family gets discouraged as well because, after the umpteen times you promised to stop and you went back and drink, you go back this time, you went and you saw Mr. Dwarika and you went to Cora and you had all this treatment and all of that, and then you go back and relapse. They are about time ready to wash their hands of you and give up and say, well, look, you're on your own. So that many an alcoholic or drug addict have found themselves to become very lonely and losing their support system. And that's not a good place to be, I tell you, because the average alcoholic or drug addict says, well, look, in Trinidad, we say, I don't have a parrot and a stick anymore. I've lost my job. I've lost my family. What's the point in staying sober now? A lot of people will use that as a rationalization to continue, perpetuate their drinking and drug use. But I want to let them know as well that the worse you become, the further down you have seen yourself in alcoholism, is the more ready you are. Because the people who are now at the beginning stage of alcoholism are less likely to stop and stay stopped. It is the people who have hit rock bottom, who really don't see any future again, the light at the end of the tunnel. Eventually, when they stop, they have a lot of things to remind them not to go back. And for those, if they find the AA meeting, they find their support groups, they tend to do far better than people who, but again, like any other illness, if you catch it in time, you could save yourself of 10 or 15 years of literal hell and misery. So what's the point? The point is, just like any other disease, prevention is better than cure, but even if you fall through the crack, and that is what this program is about. Because in spite of all that we have been saying, Jason, there are people who are still going to drink for this Christmas. And this program is not about drying up the world. I am not against people who could take a drink and enjoy. This program is about educating our brothers and sisters out there to realize when you're crossing that invisible borderline from social drinking into compulsive drinking. And if you are, then help is available. All you have to do is to call. You can call me at 671-3040. You can call the station, and the station has my permission to give the number out so that you can get help. And help is available now. We have the online meetings, we have the physical meetings, we have the marathon meetings around the holidays. So there are a lot of resources out there. There are private practitioners like myself who can also see you and make an assessment in confidence and make that determination whether you are alcoholic or not. Now, remember, alcoholism is a disease, but there are different stages. There are people who are in the beginning stage, there are those in the middle stage, and then there are those in the chronic stage. So that those in the beginning stage has a good chance of, as I said, saving themselves 10 to 15 years of literal hell and misery, and saving themselves of brain damage and all the other things that happen with drinking and drug use. So that the ball is in your court. If you think you have a problem, if you're not sure, all you have to do is to call. And nothing is wrong with if you have a disease, just like diabetes, just like hypertension, alcoholism and drug addiction. These are lifestyle illnesses that can be arrested. They cannot be cured, but they could be arrested one day at a time. And if you think you need the help, all you have to do is call, and I'll be only too happy to reach out to you and help. So I want to thank you, Jason, and thank Francis and the team for selecting the build up to the program, the videos, and for hosting this program every Thursday. I want to thank the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha, the staff at Jagriti as well, for allowing this free radio and television time as a community service for our brothers and sisters out there. And I'm telling you, it is reaching a lot of people. So thank you again, Jason.
It's always a pleasure to have you in the program, Mr. Dwarka, and always thank you for always taking the time. Every Thursday, 1 hour since inception. So until next Thursday, I'm Jason Clue saying see you around for now.